Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. The weekend is very nearly here. I hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. No Arsenal, of course, this weekend. We've got to wait for that tiny little game that is on the horizon on Tuesday night. Some of you might know that it's on Arsenal versus PSG, first leg of the Champions League semi-final. So we do have a little bit of downtime ahead of that game, but we are going to talk about it a little bit later in the show. And there's plenty of other things to discuss as well, despite this being an Arsenal-free weekend. Remember, just a little side note, obviously I know you'll watch this on here, on YouTube. This is how you get it. But if you can't manage to watch it on YouTube and you do want to be able to listen to what I have to say on the go, then of course you can listen to this via podcast. It's on all the usual podcast themes, a new podcast show, of course, after what happened to me in Madrid. All the links, if you want to go and subscribe to you, wherever you get your podcast from, you can get this show delivered to you every single day in audio form. So you can listen to it on the go, on the way to work and your lunch break, whenever it is you might want to listen it to. Myself and James Bench sat down yesterday for Inside Arsenal Extra Time. First one of those for a while, where we did talk about the PSG game. We looked ahead to the summer and some of the priorities Andrea Berta and Mikel Arteta will have when it comes to building a squad that doesn't repeat the same sort of mistakes that we've seen this season, certainly in the league anyway. So if you haven't watched or listen to that yet, you can find the video down below, or again, you can find it on your podcast feeds. Right, what we're going to talk about today. I thought we were going to start by talking about probably one of the most in-demand players, certainly in the Premier League right now, but maybe in Europe right now, in Dean Huijsen. Obviously very young, talented Bournemouth defender, just 21 years old, Spanish international. I think he's a Spanish international now. I think he got a call up this season. I should have checked that out before I started talking about this. But had a real breakthrough season for Bournemouth. Really, really impressive. And he is going to be moving this summer. That is pretty much certain. Bournemouth are resigned to that fact. It's just a question of where does he go? And Arsenal are reported from very good reporters, David Ornstein, at the top of that list, that Arsenal are one of the clubs interested in him. Now, I can't back that up at the moment because it's just not something I've really heard about. But look, the people who are reporting this, journalists who are reporting this, they are, I'm certainly not going to argue with them. These are the proper high caliber reporters who are certainly far better connected than I am around European football. And if David Ornstein and Sammy Mockbell and people like that are saying that Arsenal are one of the clubs interested in Dean Huijsen, then they will be one of the clubs interested in Dean Huijsen. The thing is, there are other clubs interested as well. Chelsea, we know all about. Liverpool as well, very, very interested by all accounts. Newcastle, Bayern Munich have been linked. Real Madrid have been linked as well. So it's not just a one-horse race or a two-horse race. It's multiple clubs, multiple top clubs trying to get this deal done for Huijsen, who's got a release clause of 50 million. Apparently, that's not a release clause that needs to be paid in full either. That can be staggered over 3 payments, which makes it quite an attractive one and a relatively cheap one in modern day standards for a player of his talent. So it's an interesting. I had a question here on this from Sam. He says, "Hi Charles, I just can't seem to wrap my head around these Huijsen links, which have been growing in strength recently. Is he a good centre back? Yes. Do we need another centre back? Not at all. A backup right centre back would be about the 12th priority signing for me, especially considering he's got the best centre back in the world in Saliba ahead of him, and a manager who isn't known for rotating his centre backs. If we buy him and then fail to make moves for enough attackers in the summer, they will come in for a lot of criticism." There's been other sort of comments very, very similar to this one as well when it comes to the sort of links with Arsenal and Huijsen. And I can understand Sam's thinking on this. Obviously, you kind of want to be in the mix for the best young players, because if they're the best young players for a reason, and if they go on to fulfill their potential, you've got an absolute world beater potentially in your hands. So you don't really want to miss out on those players. But I think how I feel about this is just Arsenal got a lot more important pressing priorities than signing a young centre back right now. And for £50 million, I would be, if Arsenal were to get this deal done, which I suspect they won't, by the way, but if Arsenal were to get this deal done and really push to get Huijsen, I would be a bit concerned about that amount of money being pushed towards a young defender. Obviously, there's sort of caveats to that with, say, I don't know, Gabriel was to move. If Saudi came in and banged £100 million on the table for Gabriel this summer, and Arsenal were decided to take it. If Gabriel said he wanted to go and he wasn't going to sign a new contract, so Arsenal decided to take it, then you obviously need to go out and sign another centre back. So should that happen, then by all means, go and spend big money on another centre back, because you're going to need to do that. But I'm hoping that Gabriel doesn't go. I'm hoping that Gabriel signs a new contract. I'm hoping that William Saliba remain Arsenal's two starting centre backs next season. And so I just don't really see the need to spend so much money on a young centre-back who, let's face it, as Sam points out, I don't think would play that much football. He would play, but I don't think he would play that much football. So it's just not one that overly sort of perks my attention right now. I also think that Arsenal, whilst I'd be interested, I'd be surprised, because I know that Bournemouth apparently want to get this deal done relatively quickly. They don't want it to drag on throughout the summer. They want to know where they stand. They want to be able to go out and sign a replacement for Huijsen, so they want to get it done pretty early. And I'm not sure Arsenal are going to be in a position to do that, because the only way that they sign him, I think, is if a big, significant exit happens when it comes to the defence. So Saliba, Gabriel, or Kivior. If one of those three goes, then maybe they would look to replace. Well, they would definitely look to replace, especially for Saliba or Gabriel. But even if Kivior goes, I think you'd need to replace him. And Kivior might go this summer, but I just don't think it would happen early. I feel like if Kivior goes, it's not one that's going to happen in the first couple of weeks of the transfer window. And I feel like the Huijsen thing is going to get wrapped up relatively quickly, because whoever gets him is going to push to get it done pretty much straight away, because that's what Bournemouth want and what they're going to want. So I don't think the timings will work for Arsenal, because I can't see them going out and signing him before Kivior goes, for example. And I'm not sure Kivior's going to go really early doors. So I just don't really see. I don't really see it being viable, but who knows? I mean, Arsenal, to be fair, they do want a young centre-back. James Gunner Blog obviously reported back in January, when Manchester City signed that young Brazilian defender, what was his name? Vitor Reis, wasn't it? That Arsenal were, really felt that they were in a good position to actually sign him at one point, but then he ended up going to Manchester City. So clearly it is something the club are thinking about. But £50 million for me this summer, when you've got to go out and really, in my mind, bring in at least two attackers, top quality attackers. I'm just not sure that money needs to be spent on a defence which is already really good, where you've got lots of options. I'm just not sure you really need to do that. But let me know your thoughts on it. Do you agree with Sam? Do you agree with me? Or do you think, no, we've got to go out and sign this kid? Let's get him before anyone else does, because he's going to be really special. And if the worst was to happen, say Madrid come knocking for Saliba in a year's time and he doesn't sign a new contract and Arsenal have to sell, then maybe you've got Huijsen, who's been at the club a year already, who's been sort of learning underneath William Saliba, and be ready to step into to his shoes should he move on. So let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Just a little bit on Sambi Lokonga. Actually, a bit of a forgotten man, Sambi Lokonga. I have to say, whenever I think of Arsenal loanees this season, I never really think of Lokonga and how he's getting on at Sevilla. I'm always thinking, I wonder how Fabio Vieira is doing, and people like that. And I should, because Lokonga's a good, talented young player. He's not going to be an Arsenal player for much longer, I don't think. But it doesn't look like he is going to be going to Sevilla. And I have to say, I'm not surprised about this. As soon as they did this deal with Sevilla in the summer and he went out on loan there, I thought it might be a good deal for him, a good move for him. But I never expected this to be turned permanent. There wasn't a compulsory purchase order in the loan. It was just an option that should Sevilla wish to take it up, they could have signed him. I think it was about £10.5 million for Lokonga. But Sevilla never got that much money to spend. They're not big spenders when it comes to the transfer market, when it comes to outlays. And I just felt that was going to be too much. And it was just it was an option that was there, but was never going to get taken up. And it seems like that is the case. And Lokonga, just like his time at Luton, when he's played, he's been good for Sevilla, but he's just had injury issues. He's out again, I think, right now. I think he's had 4, pretty serious injuries. He only played 20 games this season for Sevilla. And, it's just not really enough for them to be tempted to invest the sort of money that they would want to invest to get him down. It's just that his fitness issues, his availability issues are really impacting him, and they're certainly impacting Arsenal's chances of getting some decent money for him. So that is a shame, because it would have been nice to get sort of 10 million through the door for Lokonga, but it doesn't look like that it's going to be happening. It looks at the moment that he's going to be returning to Arsenal in the summer, and a new club is going to have to be attempted to be found for him anyway. Right, I've had a couple of questions on this one now. Cathal and Tom have got in touch. Cathal says, thoughts on the Ashburton Army tifo plans being rejected, Charles? It's a real blow for all the supporters who've helped fund the £10,000 for it. I know at times they've had differences with the club, but it's a real shame that they couldn't accept this one in the biggest game of the season. Thought that Henry one was so good against Madrid, makes Arteta telling the fans to bring their shin pads look silly. PSG will have the place covered for the second leg. And Tom says, hi, Charles. I'm sure you've seen the club have blocked the Ashburton Army's attempts at a tifo for the PSG game, despite them raising the funds themselves. I find this absolutely ridiculous. Surely you want to do everything you can to generate the best possible atmosphere for our biggest game in well over a decade. It may not be a huge deal, but I do not understand the reason to block this idea. Now, we've got, you can see if you're watching on YouTube, you see a few of the sort of tifo ideas there in this Ashburton Army post that were put to the club. The Ashburton Army put out a statement saying in just 24 hours, Arsenal fans came together to raise £10,000 to fund what would have been our biggest ever display for the Champions League semi-final against PSG. Unfortunately, the club has declined our proposed design, and there won't be a display in the clock end. As a result, everyone who contributed will be fully refunded. This just doesn't change the importance of the game. We still need every single one of you to bring the noise and back in the team like never before. Thank you to everyone who's donated. So yes, I've had lots of questions on this. I've seen there's been loads and loads of talk about it on social media as well. And as I said, if you're watching YouTube, you can see the sort of tifo potential designs that were put forward to the club. Now, from speaking to people in the club about this, I'm kind of hearing slightly different to what is kind of been put out there. That from what the club are saying is that they didn't decline or reject any idea for it, but it was just more of a time and logistics things. It wasn't going to be possible, they're saying, for all the sort of red tape that needs to be done to go through and green light it and get all the checks done and all that sort of stuff. They're saying that it just wasn't possible to be done in time. It's all come a little bit too late, and they were willing to do something, and they wanted to do something, and they were engaging with Ashburton Army to do something. But the ideas that they were put forward, from what I've been told anyway, it was that it just wasn't going to be feasible for it to be done in time, and that's why it was sort of pushed back and like we can't do this. It wasn't a case that they didn't want to do it and they rejected it because of designs or anything like that. It was because, from what I've been told, purely it was a logistic point of view, and there just wasn't enough time to get everything done and get it all signed off like it needs to be signed off for it to happen. So that's all I can say on it. I think it's a real shame because I thought the Emirates looked absolutely fantastic before the Real Madrid game. I'm sure the players came out and were just like, wow, this is brilliant. So, for Catho and Tom and everyone else asking, I do think it is a real shame that it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything happening. The Henry one was brilliant. As I said, I thought the stadium looked great. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. But just from my information, from trying to find out exactly what has gone on here, from what I'm certainly hearing from one side, from the club, is that it wasn't a case of we've just rejected the design because we don't like the design or anything like that, or there was an issue with it. It was just that, from what I've been told, it was logistics, and there just wasn't enough time for everything that needs to be signed off, and that it just wasn't going to have time for it to be done. So that's what I've been told on that subject. But yeah, it is a shame. But I'm still looking forward to an amazing atmosphere on Tuesday night. I got one from Matt here. He says, I'm not confident Gyokores fits the flat track bully in quite the way we might expect. He gets a lot of space in Portugal. He won't get that space playing for us. He's more technically limited than our players. That's going to be a problem for us. He doesn't score goals with his head. This is vital for us. He's a brilliant finisher, and the physical stuff will translate. But for me, there are some big question marks. He'd be perfect for Forest or Man United. I'm not persuaded so far. He's good for beating a low block. It's an interesting one. Quite a lot of people agree, by the way, on this. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure about the whole. I'm not. We're going to have to get a striker who's great at beating a low block. I don't know what strikers are great at beating low blocks. So please tell me. I don't. I look around at the striker. I think, oh, he's definitely better at beating a low block than this striker. I think all strikers are going to struggle, and they're going to have to find space. And I don't know. Look, I'm not 100% on Gyokores either. I'm not 100% on any signing at Arsenal, mate. You never know if it's going to work or not. But whoever they end up signing, whether it be Gyokores, whether it be Sesko, whether it be Ollie Watkins, I don't know. But someone, whoever it is, I hope it works, because they're going to spend big money on whoever comes in. And once you've spent that money, you can't reverse it. You can't get it back. The play is yours, and it needs to be a success. Look at Darwin Núñez at Liverpool, who, by the way, I actually think is quite a good player. He can't finish very well, but I do think he's a good player. And it wouldn't surprise me once if he'd probably end up leaving Liverpool this summer. But I still think there was a potential 30-goal season in there for Darwin Núñez in the Premier League, such as the chaos he creates and the chances he finds. So yeah, I'm not saying that Gyokores is the guy, but I just look at what he brings. I look at how he scores his goals, and I just think I just love how direct he is and how all about the goal he is. And so I wouldn't be averse to him signing, but I'm not saying he's the guy at all. But whoever does come in, I'm going to back, and hopefully they score the goals that we absolutely need. I don't think Gyokores is going to score the amount of goals he scored in Portugal in the Premier League. I don't think anyone can ever expect that. But even if he gets half what he scored in Portugal, that'll be fine for me. If he gets himself 20 goals next season, if he does sign for Arsenal, he gets 20 goals next season, then I'm perfectly happy with that. 20, 25 goals. That's what you want. So, yeah, we'll see. But Matt's not overly convinced by him. I know plenty of others are not overly convinced by him and don't think he's got the best first touch or anything like that. People have pointed out he's not that great in the air and all that. So we'll see. But, the club will be doing a hell of a lot of work, analysing a hell of a lot of strikers, and whoever they come up with, whoever is the guy that they spend money on, fingers crossed it works out, because unfortunately I think the one guarantee you have if he stays fit is Alexander Isak. He's the one that you would think whatever happens he'll come in and score goals, but it's just not going to happen. Too much money, not going to happen. Here's one from Jelly Belly. He says, "Hi Charles, what are your thoughts about Arsenal having to give Liverpool a guard of honour when we played them at Anfield? Is this a regular thing for every single team after winning as crowned champions to give them one, or just the first team after? I'd hate to see our players humbled. If I was Arteta, I'd roll out the under-21 squad." I'm not bothered about it at all. It's just always happened. So I don't see why it's our players being humbled. It's just tradition. It's not them being humbled. Liverpool had to do it in Arsenal when we won the league in '98 and then went to Anfield, and they had to do it for us. Other teams have done it for us when we've won the league. We've done it for plenty of teams. We did it for Manchester United. We did it for Man United when Robin van Persie won the title. I mean, that was bad enough, but still got to be done. So it's just not humbled. It might be humbled because some 17-year-old kid on social media, a Liverpool fan, will then post a load of tweets about it and it will get picked up and all Liverpool fans will wind up Arsenal fans on social media. But if that's what really winds you up, then I'm afraid that's your issue, because really shouldn't be losing any sleep over some faceless fan accounts on Twitter trying to wind up you and your club's fan base. So no, not bothered about it. I don't think it's players being humbled. I think it's players showing respect to the team that's won the title. It's what happens in England, and it happened this season. Hopefully next season teams will be doing it to Arsenal. So no, not bothered about it. I have to say, not bothered at all. And that's it for me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate your time as always. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube and you didn't know about the podcast and you want to get it downloaded as an audio form so you can listen to it wherever you go around the world, wherever you're walking, listening to stuff, then you can do that. All the links are down into the descriptions below. Thanks for watching. Have a great start to your weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.